Start your morning with a balanced breakfast with Witherbloom Crunch. It's magically delicious and mildly concerning. Each bite is packed with swamp-grown sprouts, a hint of forest dryads, and just a dash of hellfire flavor. Witherbloom Crunch is sure to fix your biorhythm. Welcome to Head Games. Greetings and salutations, everybody. My name is a Zombie Apocalypse, and when I was called up to the Sorting Hat, they just called me Steve.
I feel like that's the wrong school.
It's still a school.
Yeah, I'm Jet. I really wanted to be in Witherbloom, but I think I might end up in Silver Quill because I talk too much. Most folks just call me Tim.
You know what? I don't think you talk too much. In fact, that's why we have a podcast.
That's probably why.
Thank you for joining us today on the Head Games Commander podcast, where we spotlight some of our favorite commanders from Magic the Gathering. But before we get started, I hear if you are in school and you like this video, you'll increase your grade by 10%. And if you subscribe, you'll just get straight A's. So do the smart thing and hit all the right buttons. And if you're not in school, you'll get a pay raise. So
Who doesn't like more money?
Who doesn't like more money? So, Tim, who are we shining the spotlight on today?
Well, we probably already named it if they've listened to the cold open by now.
Maybe.
So we are back in Secrets of Strixhaven. So today we are spotlighting Witherbloom the Balancer.
Animation.
So today we're going to talk about the deck strategy, share what we like about the commander, highlight our favorite cards from the deck, just do our general gushing about cards thing that we like to do. Today's deck was built by our friend Zombie over here from the Secrets of Strixhaven main set. I'll let him kick it off with, who is the commander? What's the rule 0/bracket conversation sound like?
Alrighty, so excuse me. The card that I used as my commander was Witherbloom the Balancer. He is an 8 mana, 6, a black and a green, legendary creature, Elder Dragon. He has affinity for creatures. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control. He has Flying and Dutch Touch, which I didn't know. And instants and sorcery spells you cast have an affinity for creatures. So this deck is powerful. The commander himself is just so powerful. Just having him in your command zone, it's a 4 automatically. Unless if you have 0 instants and sorceries, then what are you doing? Just the way, this deck felt very similar to my Sammy Weatherlight Captain, but not as fun. I actually enjoyed Sammy a lot more. But my bracket talk is, hey, there's 2 card infinite combos. It's explosive. I can accidentally win on turn 3. It's not CDH because I don't have a meta in mind. This is just me just doing things. I don't know the CDH meta good enough to make this into CDH, but I could see it fitting in CDH really easily. So definitely very powerful. And I'm curious on to hear Tim on the strengths and weaknesses of this deck. I really want to see what he has to say about this deck, because I have a lot of interesting things to say about this deck.
So, to kick that off, I agree that the words on the commander are very strong, and they create a situation where you're able to get an enormous amount of mana advantage very quickly. So it's easy to set up your commander. Once it's down, the ceiling of what you're capable of doing is very, very high. That really the strength of the deck is that opponents need to have a board wipe, and I would say the first 3 or 4 turns. Or this deck is going to consistently get to its commander on 4 with probably a little bit of mana to spare, which is enough for it to either actually combo off or at least get an enormous amount of advantage right there on, I would say, the fourth turn. So I do think that it's remarkably strong in that way, that the ceiling of what the commander is capable of is very, very strong. So I guess if I had to identify the weaknesses here, I would argue that it is in no way a 4. And by that, I mean, if this was at a table of 4s, it would not win as it is currently built, because you built it with, and this is usually what we do when we just theory craft a deck, is that we try to build it not necessarily with a budget in mind, but with a power level in mind. Like, you didn't include all the best tutors in the deck. There's only one game changer in it. Mm-hmm. You're not really able to meaningfully interact with counter spells. So any kind of CEDH deck is going to pick the pieces of this apart, and a 4 is meant to be so high powered that it should have the interactive tools to pick this apart as well. Like, I would actually be pretty surprised if this consistently performed at that kind of table, because we don't play at those kind of tables.
That's fair.
Not the game. Those aren't the games that we're trying to play. Do I think it could get to that level? I do think that that it is possible that it could be so streamlined that it was consistently getting to that. But if you were playing with that high-powered meta in mind, you would have to be able to deal with counterspells. Like right now, you've got, I think, one card in the deck that does that, and you would have to have that as one of your first 4 creatures, or they're going to counter your commander or your combo piece. And once your combo piece is gone, like if they countered that or exiled it, what are you going to do?
That's fair.
So this is a situation where it's like big fish in small pond, small fish in big pond, where I think that, like, at any kind of casual table, this is going to feel downright oppressive. Mm-hmm. And at any, like, actually powerful table, they're going to be able to manage it a lot more effectively, which isn't to say that it wouldn't win at those tables. It would, because any deck that has like a combo that can be consistently performed on turn 4 or so, it's going to win some of the time, and it is going to do that. So that is my take on it so far. One more thing before I let you take over. After looking at the list, I played against it a couple of times, and it did the thing. It won incredibly quickly in the first game that we played against it, and then we played a second game, and it probably should have won that second game as well.
It could have, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's important to know that, like, in the two game sample that we have, it was very consistent. But when looking at the deck, I think to myself, like, it's a black-green commander, and what can you do with the ability to cast instants and sorceries way ahead of curve? There's actually a very limited number of things that are meaningfully powerful to do with that. So again, if you're playing against a dedicated control deck and you can't deal with its counterspells, the deck's not going to do anything. So I actually felt like, you know, that really held it back some, is that, you know, yes, it seems awesome that you can do that you can give affinity to creatures to all those instants and sorceries, but then you look at the list of big green and black sorceries and you go, oh, so I'm either blowing up all the creatures.
Yep.
Or I'm maybe drawing cards in green equal to the highest power I have, but or I'm like, green does a lot of Genesis Wave stuff, and that's not effective in this deck.
No, not at all.
So like these big splashy things that you would normally try to do, the colors don't give it those big splashy things. So that's my take.
Yeah, you actually bring up a lot of valid points. So one of the strengths is it is incredibly explosive. I accidentally won on turn 3 in that first game. Not like I didn't keep anything special. I just happened to draw, into, my one combo card, and happened to have a land that produced a creature, and then I had a mana dork on turn 1 and turn 2. So on turn 3 I was able to cast it, and then on player 4's end step I just made an infinite number of creatures with specifically the card Sprout Swarm. It has buyback and convoke, so I can just tap a green creature to pay for the green, which it makes a green sapperling. So that's how it goes infinite. As long as I have 4 creatures by the second resolution, it's infinite. And if I'm playing it on the same term as my commander can play the initial green, and I'm going to have to reduce it enough to actually play my commander. So I would need the 4 creatures to pay for this, which then pays for all the other spells.
Just to add a little clarity here, this is what Affinity for Creatures does, is that it reduces the cost of this spell, and the spell has buyback, which means if you pay the additional buyback cost, when you cast the spell, you don't put it in the graveyard, you put it right back in your hand.
Yep.
It also has Convoke, which allows you can tap a creature to pay for part of its cost.
Yep.
So it produces a green creature every time. If you have at least 4 creatures, the colorless mana cost of the spell with buyback is reduced to 0. So you're essentially creating a green creature, putting the spell back in your hand, tapping the new green creature to cast it again, and you can do that. You can do that forever.
Yeah.
And it's instant.
It is an instant.
And it is an instant.
So it's super explosive. I think Tim said it right. I think the opponents need either instant speed removal, so I only have the chance to play 1 spell. If I'm lucky, I can do more, depending on what spells I have in my hand. But getting rid of my commander over and over again also doesn't help as much as you think, because then I just play 2 more creatures and then the command tax is already paid for again. So with as much mana dorks and everything like that, you need to board wipe me and then get me down to 0 cards in hand, which is possible, but we'll get into the numbers of how many card draw spells I have, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. I will say that one of the weaknesses that I have with the deck is boring as hell to play.
Yeah.
Like, it just does the same things over and over and over again, and that's just not really something that I'm interested in. Because I believe there is 20 something mana dorks in the deck. So it's play 2-3 mana dorks in the beginning of the game, play my commander. Oops, I think I win. And it's not always that simple, but it turns out it's kind of that simple. And it's just not really my cup of tea. So I don't really plan on picking this deck up ever again. I don't plan on fixing it to make it even better if I really wanted to. It's just, it is not fun to play. Like, I actively felt bad for winning as fast as I did, and then like holding back that, like, I didn't want to steal that win. I just wanted everyone else to play Magic. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just draw a whole bunch of cards and do cool things and let them do things. And it's just, it didn't feel good. So it just doesn't feel good to play. So that's the weakness in this deck. Yeah, of course you can, board wipe me and make me bust, but again, it's just not a fun deck to play. Which is a really interesting thing to kind of experience.
I mean, I understand that. I understand the feeling of like when a deck is so very linear that the gameplay experience feels exactly the same each time, that it does take away a lot of the experience that I feel like a lot of people are trying to get with Commander. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of formats out there where you are going to kind of jam the same deck and get the same experience over and over and over, but really we are looking for something that is a little bit more varied. I think we are. I know for sure you and I are. So when you have something that ends up doing the same thing, and in this case it's like the deck builds itself. Yes. Like, there isn't a lot of like creativity in the way that you're going to build this deck. Like, you're going to go look up the cards that make sense for this deck, and you're going to end up with probably the same answers that the next person ends up with. And you're going to end up with a deck that, left to its own devices, if it doesn't get interacted with efficiently, is going to take over the game almost every time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if 70 of these cards are in every single Witherbloom deck.
Yeah.
I could just see it being that.
I think it'll be a very small amount of variance.
Yeah.
All right. So that being said, everybody might be surprised to hear us talking about how much we're not actually fond of this deck, and we are still going to talk about it today. And we're still going to talk about the deck because one of the more interesting things that we get to do is build new commander decks on a regular basis and kind of examine what that means, examines our own deck building kind of strategies and how we put those things together. So to break down the first part of the deck, we're going to move into what we call the basics. These are the traditional card categories that just about every commander deck wants. These are the kind of things that that you want to put in your deck to improve consistency. Think of these as the fundamentals. These are the cards that you need to play so you can play the cards that you want to play. So I'll let Steve give the basic categories and the statistics, how many of each are in the deck.
Alrighty, so for card draw, I have 15. Ramp, I have 24. Single targeted interaction, I have 7. And mass interaction, I also have 7. So now that we've gone over the basic categories, we like to pick out a card each from those categories. And honestly, I think a lot of these cards can be fun to talk about. But like, as I said, there's 24 ramp pieces, 20 of them are mana dorks. It's probably not 20, but there's a lot. Whether they're 1 or 2 mana is really maybe even 3 sometimes. But I have 23 creatures, and almost every single one of them either makes a creature or involved in tapping for mana, except for one that I can see. And yeah, only so one creature doesn't make a creature, but it deals things when I cast instants and sorceries, and then it's Children of the Apocalypse. Either everything else either makes creatures or taps for mana or produces mana in some way. It's ridiculous, and I apologize for what I have done. All right, so Tim, what's the card that you chose for card draw today?
So in the spirit of it being a deck that reduces the cost that you actually pay for spells, I thought that this was a very good include. And again, I think everybody else is going to see this one as well. And that's good old Up the Beanstalk. So Beans is a 2-mana enchantment that reads, when it enters, you draw a card. And then whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. It's interesting to think about that in Secrets of Strixhaven, they really started playing around with this new wording, which is if the mana you spent to cast a spell is a certain amount, it triggers in a different way. And Beanstalk predates that. So it really is if the mana value is 5 or greater, you draw a card. So if you're reducing all of your spells down to very, very cheap, you still get to draw a card. So yes. Beans gets your card when you put it in. So it replaces itself on enter early on in the game. And then your commander is the first trigger for this. It 100% triggers it, even though you're spending 2 mana to get it. So drawing that additional card incrementally is going to get you where you want to go. Just an obvious and very, very strong include in a deck that reduces the cost that you're paying because it cares about mana value.
Yeah, I'm going to use this term. It helps me storm off a little bit, right? So like I do have one card with storm in here, and it's Tendrils of Agony. And it's not great. I just put it in there because there's a lot of things that make me pay life or I lose life doing it. So I was like, okay, it would be nice to be like, okay, I kind of need to freshen up a little bit, you know? But the fact that when I'm drawing cards, it's like I'm paying only 1 or 2 for most of them, like it seems pretty solid. And every time that I've had it while goldfishing, it's done a lot of work. So very good pick. The card that I picked is a spicy one. So the card I picked is Stinging Study. It is a 5 mana instant. It says you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the mana value of the commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. So Tim, I heard Ancestral Recall for 1 blue mana drawing 3 cards is good. What about for 1 black mana drawing 8 cards and losing 8 life? Is
that seems bad.
It seems real bad. So you shouldn't play this card. It is the worst card of all times. No, but seriously, Stinging Study it's like the kicking off point of me going into my combo. It's because what this deck is trying to do is it's going to empty its hand with Mana Dorks, and then it's going to refill its hand with these draw spells. And when it's reduced to 1 mana to draw 8 cards, those 8 cards are going to have more cards that are going to either draw me more cards or just outright win me the game. So, yeah, it's pretty easy. Even on the turn that I play Witherbloom, on their end step, draw 8 cards, and then just go ham on my next turn and basically win the game that way. Yeah, Stinging Study. I love playing this card. The first time I picked it up was for my Phage the Untouchable deck because it is 5 mana, draw 7, lose 7. If you have an expensive commander, Stinging Study should be in your list. If it's in black.
Double good in this case, right?
Yeah.
Because high mana value commander and the commander reduces its cost. Like, it is just the perfect fit for this kind of deck. You're almost always going to be playing it for 1 if your commander's on the board. Because if your commander came down, chances are you had at least 3, and now you have 4 creatures, which means this costs 1 black. And that advantage, that explosive card draw gets you to whatever you need to do next. Gets you to the interaction that you need to draw, gets you to another card draw spell, probably finds you something to do that turn, or as you said, if it's instant speed, maybe it just draws you into your combo pieces.
Yeah, it's super solid. So Tim, what's the RAM card that you picked?
So again, there's so many options here. I tried to pick one of the Mana Dorks that I thought was the most kind of explosive and powerful, and it is a card that has a name that is a pain in the butt to say, and I don't like it. It's a Circle of Dreams Druid. This is from, believe it's from Baldur's Gate. Not Baldur's Gate. Forgotten Realms. That's it.
Yeah.
So 3 green for a 2/1 elf druid. It taps and adds a green for each creature you control. So again, in a deck that is definitely motivated to get as many creatures on board as possible, it is going to get you an enormous amount of mana very quickly. So if this comes down on 3 or even 2, and 1 drop dork into this on 2 is going to be a very potent start.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like the RAM package is nothing like amazingly special that you want to write home about. So it was kind of hard to pick a card for this category. But the card that I picked is a fascinating one. I like this card a lot, and it is Awaken in the Woods. So it's X and 2 green sorcery, and it says create X 1/1 green forest dryad land creature tokens. Okay, so the reason why I picked this card is good before my commander and after, because there was a game or I think it was in the game where it was on turn 3. I played this for 5, which then gave me 6 creatures. So all I had to pay on turn 4 was a green and a black for my commander. But then I had, 3 Mana Dorks, 3 lands that are creatures, and 2 other lands that I can tap to do whatever I want. Like, I can do whatever I want. There's so many creatures. All my spells are going to cost just their color pips. That's something I probably should have mentioned earlier, is like color fixing is kind of important in this list. I intentionally didn't choose very many colorless lands because I knew how important it was going to be able to tap for colored mana in this list. So
That's actually at least a little ironic, and by that I mean I actually, when looking at other cards that you could possibly have included in the list, if you didn't do that, if you actually leaned into being able to do colorless stuff, it opens you up to at least some fun options. I don't know if they're better, but
Right.
it's an interesting thought that it's like if you didn't have so much, that was color specific, that might open up new lines.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my RAM pick. So Tim, the single target interaction. I am now officially in love with this card, and it's all your fault. So why don't you go ahead and tell them what card I fell in love with?
You made it weird. Why'd you make it weird?
Because that's my job.
So Steve's talking about Tybar's Stand. This is X and a green for an instant that says target creature you control gets +X/+X, hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. So we came to be fond of this card through our old friend Gitrog, the Ravenous Ride, which is also a a Golgari big mana deck that gets all of its lands out in play. And what we learned about Tybar's Stand is it's a fantastic protections piece for a commander. And for just one green, it gets hexproof and indestructible, which is going to protect it from a fair amount. Like it's, hexproof is going to stop it getting Path to Exiled. Indestructible is going to stop it from getting Wrath of God. But the important part here is that it's got an X in the mana value. And in this deck, that means you can, for however many creatures you have and however many extra mana you'd have sitting around, you can make a creature much bigger, which means you can one-shot people with your commander. So it ends up being something that is a protection piece, but also doubles as a player removal.
So the one thing that I can actually use this kind of a bit offensively, because I do have a couple of cards that care about the power of my creature. So I could, for one green, make my commander into a 10/10, and then
that's a good idea.
then just draw 10 cards instead of 5.
Yep. Sure
yeah. So it's a small little tech that you can do that I don't think will be super relevant long term, but it's just like one of those things that when building the deck, I kind of thought about using that card for. So the card that I picked is Golgari Charm. I actually said it right, Tim. You should be proud. It is a black and a green instant. Choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn, which I'm probably never going to use that side of the card because it's going to kill all my mana dorks. The second one is destroy target enchantment, which is just solid to have. But the really important part, it says regenerate creature you control. Each creature you control. So it will save me that. Well, I guess I thought it's a target creature you control. So yeah, this could have been, I didn't count this in my mass interaction, by the way. So one more for mass interaction. Huzzah! Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that it can regenerate my board. I like the fact that it does destroy an enchantment, because sometimes those things can be really pesky and you need to get rid of those as well. All around, just a solid card to have in the list.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just looking at the Witherbloom charm to see if it was any better, and the short answer is it's not. It's got versatility and it does 3 different things, but I think this one fits a little bit better. I'm not sure I'm hot on this card, honestly, but I understand. Like I'm a big fan of putting things like charms in commander decks because you really don't know what you're going to play against, especially at casual tables. So I think that having something that is a little bit more spread out like that is definitely not a bad choice.
Yeah. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and go into our mass interaction, and there's some really spicy cards in here that the mass interaction in this list is really, really fun, in my opinion. So Tim, what was the card that you picked?
I picked In Garrick's Wake. This is a 9-mana sorcery that reads, destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. So the magic of this is it's such an expensive card that you almost never actually get to resolve it. Mm-hmm. But again, in this deck, once our commander hits the board, chances are this is maybe only 2, but not a whole lot more than that if it is any more than that. It can get down to 2 mana, and for 2 mana, just blowing up all of your opponent's creatures creatures and leaving yours to tell the tale. A one-sided board wipe for 2 mana seems pretty good. And this does highlight part of the kind of problem with this deck, though, is that when you're looking for big mana things for black to do, it's this.
It's destroy everything, yeah.
It's destroy everything. And so that being said, you might as well go for the Gusto. And that's this. This is the Gusto.
Yeah, there's another version that does the almost exact same thing. It's Plague Wind. The only difference is they can't be regenerated and doesn't destroy the planeswalkers. The reason why I picked these cards, and this was the original premise of the deck, was to play the one-sided board wipes. And then, are we talking about the other card later?
You are.
Oh, we are. So I will save that part for then. So, but just keep in mind, the original idea was to run one-sided board wipes for a specific card, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and go into my mass interaction, and we're talking about Azuri's Predation. It is 5 and 3 green, and it says for each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian Beast creature token. Each of those tokens fight a different one of those creatures. So the cool thing about this is I'm paying 3 green a lot of the times for it. And it makes a whole bunch of creatures for my end. So it's going to make my X spells cost a whole, like my X is just going to be generically higher. It wipes the board, and it's like 4/4 Beast can go through and win a game, right? I don't necessarily need to pump the 4/4 Beast, but like my 1/1 Dryads aren't going to win me the game because they're just 1/1s. I would need to have 120 of them, and that's a little bit harder to do than you would think. I'm not making that many creatures. So I like the fact that I can also play it without my commander. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but then it makes my commander free again.
Yeah, I love whenever you get to include this in a list. Like, I think that this card, kind of epitomizes what is fun about Commander. It's that you can include this in a mass interaction slot. Like this is, for all intents and purposes, a board wipe, and it's like the best green board wipe. Not in that it is the most efficient, but in that it is the most like it is the embodiment of what the color green is meant to do in this game. I'm going to beat all of your creatures by making beasts and having them fight those creatures. So I'm really glad to see that this got included in the list.
Yeah, I like the card a lot. I try to include it in as often as possible. Not always, but as often as I can.
So that, friends, is the basic categories. We're going to move now into what we call the non-basics. And so now that we've covered the simple stuff, the traditional categories, we're going to talk more now about the specific goals and or strategies of this deck or this archetype. In this case, I think the deck has a very specific line to it. So I'm going to let Steve break down the different categories that we're going to discuss, and then we'll talk about cards in those categories that we think are good inclusions in this list.
It's funny because like when I was coming up with these things, it was very difficult to come up with a total of 4. So the first objective or non-basic is create tokens. The next non-basic is big card draw spells. The third one is big splashy spells. And the fourth one is ways to win, right?
Yeah, I feel like...
And the problem is the big splashy spells win me the game.
Yeah, I would make the argument that 2, 3, and 4 are practically the same category with a little bit of nuance. So
yeah,
that makes sense to me.
Because like the deck wants to make creatures, play spells. That is it. So
That's
Tim, what's your create tokens card that you picked? And I enjoy this one. I'm glad you picked this one.
This is relatively new, so it is. If you haven't heard of it yet, definitely look into this card. It's actually fetched a price tag now. So this was printed in the Ashling the Limitless pre-con. Ask me how I know. Springleaf Parade is X and 2 green. It's an enchantment, which actually makes it, I don't want to say it's a non-bow because it does make tokens, which is what the deck's trying to do. So anyway, X and 2 green. It's an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, create X 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature tokens with Changeling, and then creature tokens you control have add 1 mana of any color. So it is creating mana dorks, so it fits into what the deck is trying to do, and it is an X spell. It's just not an instant or sorcery, so it doesn't get the benefit from the commander.
Yeah, I don't think it's as much as a Nambo as you think, because like realistically speaking, I'm trying to pay this on turn 3 with like 2 mana dorks on the battlefield. So like it's like I'm getting 5, like it's a total of 5. I get 3 more mana dorks, and that's enough. And like it gets to the point where like if it is later in the game, I can just pay this for 2 green to just have a Cryptolith, right, for my tokens. And that's boy, exactly there's a lot, right. And that's enough.
We talk a lot about cards that are good before your commander comes down, cards that are good after. And I think that this definitely skews before, like it's much better before because it does get you into your commander faster. But you make an excellent point here where it does end up still being an interesting ramp piece later on, because if you did end up with a bunch of tokens through any of the other means, because the deck is trying to make tokens. So if you end up with other tokens, this is just turning those into mana dorks too. So it's not dead after your commander.
It's just not as good. Right. Yeah.
Yep.
100% agree. So the token generating card that I picked is usually not a really good card. The card I picked is Sylvan Offering. It is X and a green for a sorcery and says choose an opponent. You and that player each create an XX green treefall creature. And then choose an opponent. You and that player each create X11 green elf warrior creature tokens. Here's where I like about this one. Before my commander, I'm using this as an example for most of it because like I'm trying to do this with about 5 mana. So X equaling 4, this gives me 5 creatures. Which makes Taval only a black and a green.
Witherbloom.
I'm sorry. Thank you. They're all balancing and it's confusing.
It's true. You have a type.
Turns out I'm balanced with quotation fingers. So anyway, it's really good before my commander, and after my commander, it's just like with all my 2 mana board wipes, I can then just make X 15, and then for 2 mana after that, your creatures don't matter anymore. Oh no.
Trying to do math. So the commander is 8. So if you have 4 creatures, it costs 4.
Correct.
Right. So like I was trying to think that like this on 2, even X2 makes you 3 creatures.
Yep.
So Llanowar on 1.
This on
3
2.
creatures on this on 2. It's your commander on 3. You don't have any other mana, I think. No, because you drop your 3rd land and you've got 3 lands in Llanowar or whatever you put down. So you got exactly 4 mana. So you can have your commander on 3 with this card. That being said, like it just scales up. It's basically X and a green make X+1 tokens.
Yep.
So as far as the rate goes, it's probably the best you're going to get as far as like tokens per amount of mana spent. So it just fits in that niche very well. And as you have very clearly illustrated in the times that you've played the deck, it doesn't matter if you're giving your opponent creatures.
Nope. Not at all.
Because you're either going to win by going so wide that it doesn't matter how many creatures they have, or you're going to win with an X spell that drains them out anyway.
Yep. Yeah, it's nice to be able to pick a card that normally would be seen as bad, and when it becomes, I'm not going to call it great, but like I'm not going to be upset to see this one. Because even with like what I like about it is it makes an XX tree folk, right? So if X is high enough, I'm drawing more cards off of it.
Yep.
Because of that, right? And that's just something that like made me not hate like some of the creature draw spells, because I would rather have like we're about to talk about both of the cards next anyway. So
always the case.
So let's go ahead and just hop into the big splashy draw spells. So Tim, what's the card that you picked?
So I picked Collective Unconscious. Unconscious.
Conscious?
Unconscious. I don't know why I can't say that word. It's a 6-mana sorcery that says draw a card for each creature you control. Again, this list is massively go wide.
Yep.
Your commander's reducing this to potentially cost 2. So if you're getting the way that we're normally talking about that your commander coming down, you're probably at 5 creatures by the time your commander comes down, making this cost 2 green. And so 2 green, you're drawing 5. Like that's the floor.
That's a floor.
The ceiling is far higher.
Yeah. Even if it's like right after I played that Sylvan Awakening for 1. So for 1 green, I hypothetically, in that situation where it's like the turn of my commander, I make 5 creatures with it. So for then 2 more greens, I'm drawing 10 cards.
Yep.
Yeah, it scales really, really wildly with this deck. And it turns out the card that I picked says the same exact words on it, except... so anyway, the card that I picked is Shamanic Revelation, is just a strictly better version of what I picked. It is 1 mana less, and it says draw cards for each creature you control, and it has Ferocious. You gain 4 life for each creature with power 4 or greater. So realistically speaking, it says just draw 4 80% of the time. But who cares? I just want to draw a lot of cards, and that's how green does it, by either having a lot of creatures or a big creature. So, and honestly, these two are the best of in that class. Well, to be fair, they're only in that class, because if there was another card that said draw cards for each creature you control, bet your sweet patootie, it would be in this list.
It'd be in here. Yeah,
it would be in here. So, now, the next cards, the big splashy spells. It turns out Tim also picked a really big card draw spell, but it's a really good one. So Tim, go ahead and tell me what card you stole from me.
The card is Peer into the Abyss. Check out our shorts for fantastic gameplay content featuring this card. Peer into the Abyss is 7 mana, 4 and 3 black. It's a sorcery. It says target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life, round up each time. So this card's hilarious in Commander because of how big the deck is. It's going to draw you 30 to 40 cards every time, which, I mean, at that point, it might as well be a tutor, but it's an enormous amount of fun. Now, obviously, you lose half of your life, but it's worth every bit of that. It's a very, very fun card, and again, big splashy spell. If I have spells that are this that I'm spending this much mana on, I really want them to look like this.
Yeah, especially when it's only 3 black to draw half your library.
Yep.
It seems pretty good. Now, I wouldn't know what it's like. What's it like drawing half your library, Tim? I wouldn't know.
It's a lot of fun. It's probably going to draw you into the Rube Goldberg machine that will win you the game, and if it doesn't, you probably built your deck wrong.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind if I'm playing this card, I'm winning that turn as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, that's the overarching problem with this list is you draw a lot of cards, you win the game. Now, to be fair, drawing a lot of cards and winning the game is something that I like to do, just not necessarily in this fashion.
To be clear, it's the cost reduction that's winning you the game.
Yeah, bingo.
Like it's like, because when you draw half of your deck, if you can't cast anything else that turn, it doesn't win you the game. But the way that the commander works, it's making all of the spells that matter way cheaper. So if you've got 6 or 7 mana going into your turn and you spend the first 3 of it drawing half of your deck, and then then your winning combo only costs you 1 mana, or frankly, because it's a convoke card, you just need to have 5 creatures. Actually, no, 1. You would need a 1 untapped green creature and 3 other green creatures on board, and you go infinite. So this is just looking for that combo in the top half of the deck, and once you've got it, that's the game.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers. Alrighty, so the card that I picked, it's kind of in the same vein as Peer into the Abyss. It's Diabolic Revelation. It is X3 and 2 black for a sorcery that says search your library for up to X cards and put those cards into your hands, then shuffle. So realistically speaking, what's happening here is for 2 black, I'm searching my library for 10 cards. And if that's not enough to win the game, I built my deck wrong, Tim.
You really need one.
I really only need one, right? And that's what makes
the deck not fun.
Yep,
is that it's really just looking for that one card. And in fairness, you're probably grabbing 3. You're probably grabbing the 3 or 4 different like win conditions that the deck can probably use, so that if one doesn't work, you can just try the next one. But really, like that's what makes it not fun, is that like any tutor in the deck makes it feel like you're just going for the win at that point.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I didn't put like the demonic tutors and stuff in here. And I probably should have at this point. Because I knew I was putting a 2-card combo in there, so I probably should. So oh no, Tim, you disappeared. He's back, guys. You just had to take a quick run. Alrighty, folks. So we're gonna go ahead and go into ways to win, and really, there's one. In the list.
Sprout Swarm. Huh? It's Sprout Swarm.
It's Sprout
Spoiler
Swarm.
alert.
It's Sprout Swarm. But we don't want to gush about that card because I'm mad at that card actually. Anyway, so Tim, what's one of the big splashy spells that can win me the game on the spot?
So this one is also kind of a classic in Commander, and it's Torment of Hailfire, X and 2 black. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. So like this isn't necessarily going to win you the game, but if it resolves, everybody's going to scoop, because they either, like, if you do it for a certain number, it's they have to sacrifice every permanent, discard every card, and then maybe survive. But no one wants to play the game empty-handed. Once somebody has gutted my board and my hand, it really just feels like a matter of time at that point. And then there is a magic number which does in fact win you the game. Yeah, like if you do it for a high enough amount, you can do it so high that they do actually just not have enough to do anything but lose at that point.
Yeah. Even if it's like, oh, I didn't tap any extra into it, and X is still like 7 or 10 or whatever, and it's enough to just clear the way for my creatures now to get through, that's good enough too. So like it and also it's good counterbait too, right? Like it's either counter this or lose your counter, right? So then if they counter this, I have other options as well. So yeah, the card's broken, especially when you only have to pay 2 black and get such a high number on that X spell. So yeah, it's a pretty broken way to win. And so the card that I picked, and it's the only game changer in the list. This was the original premise of the deck. I wanted to run a whole bunch of different single-sided board wipes so I could play Biorhythm for 2 green. I thought it would be a cool way to win, and it turns out there's just other better ways to do this, and it's not to play Biorhythm. But I think it's cool. I wanted to try a deck with Biorhythm with it because it just got unbanned, and it was like, oh, let's see if it's worth being a game changer. And it turns out in this list it doesn't need to exist, but I wanted it anyway.
Why don't you tell the listeners what it does?
Oh, yes, Biorhythm. It is each player's life. It's 6 and 2 green, and it says each player's life total becomes the number of creatures he or she controls. So, if I play Plague Wind for 2, you have no more creatures. I play Biorhythm. Hey, your life total becomes 0.
Yep.
It's another 2-card combo. I mean, technically it's a bit more because I need to have creatures in play and I need to have my commander as well. But when you build your deck to do that, it's basically a 2-card combo. So, if anything, that would be the card that I would pick if I played Demonic Revelations or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that like you dig for like if you get 4 cards. You get 4 cards. You get Sprout Swarm, Torment of Hailfire, Biorhythm, and Plague Wind. Like you get those 4 cards, and you see you bait them out with one, and then you play. Whichever one wins first wins, and then
basically doesn't. Yeah. So Biorhythm's a pretty cool card. If it's not the problem is it's overshadowed, right? Like it's overshadowed by a lot of easier ways to win. And that's what makes me sad. Alrighty.
All right. That's it. So the next section is what we like to call honorable mentions. This is cards that we just like in the list that we think are neat includes and kind of synergize well with what the deck is doing. Didn't necessarily fit into any of the other categories. So what was your honorable mention for this list?
So my honorable mention is not necessarily the most flashy spell. It's not the best spell on the list, but it's the spell that I was happiest to see. Like either before my commander, after my commander, it really depended on like I was just every time I saw this card in my hand, I was happy to see it. And it is Circle of Power. It is 3 and a black for a sorcery. It says you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Create a 0/1 wizard creature token with whenever you cast a non-creature spell. This token deals 1 damage to each opponent. Also, wizards you control get +1/+0 and gain lifelink until end of turn. Surprisingly relevant. I didn't think about what the lifelink did, which is really cool. I do have another card that does something rather similar. I am going to bring it up now because I also enjoyed this one. It is where'd it go? That one's an instant, isn't it?
Transpose.
Yeah, transpose. So it's 3, it draws me a card, then I discard a card, and then I lose 1 life, and then it makes another wizard that does the same thing, and it has rebound. So those wizards make me win on the spot with Sprout Swarm. Then I don't have, like, it doesn't matter when I start doing that loop. I'm just going to win right there on the spot, which is a nice include. And I do have another creature that does the same thing as what those wizards do. So I have 3 other cards that can kind of make Sprout Swarm a more efficient way to win. So I really like that card. I'm going to have to use this more in like Grixis Spellslinger decks and stuff.
Sure.
Alrighty, Tim, what's the card that you picked?
So we don't often play with tutors unless we feel like they synergize with the list really well, and this one just does. Because of what the commander does, it effectively makes this free.
Yeah, it does.
So the card is Beseech the Queen. And it is, it's got hybrid mana of 2 generic or 1 black 3 times. So it's technically got a mana value of 6, which you can play with any combination of 2 generic for each pip or 1 black for each pip. So because it's got generic in the hybrid, it means that can get reduced to 0. So this can effectively become a 0 casting cost spell. So you search your library for a card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control, reveal it and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Hey, how much does that spell we keep talking about cost?
2.
2. Okay, so as long as it's after turn 2, as long as you've got 2 lands, Beseech the Swarm with your commander, get Sprout Swarm, or Beseech the Queen, get Sprout Swarm for free.
Got it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
We got there, folks. I think we made Sprout Swarm good.
You broke it.
Interesting factoid that not many people will think about. This Beseech the Queen will trigger Up the Beanstalk. Because I got bamboozled by that with the Reaper King No More. I had something that says destroys a creature with mana value X or less or whatever. And
that's right.
I didn't do 6.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. So, why not make Beseech the Queen just a little bit better by drawing a card off of it too? It's a good card. I really like it in my Phage deck though, because that card that deck needs so many tutors, and Beseech the Queen will get whatever I want once I'm casting it. It's a lot of fun. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and segue into probably one of my favorite parts. And that's the cards to consider, because let's be perfectly honest, I am not the best deck builder in the world. And I forget cards exist. I misread cards all the time. And I am actually happy with the cards that are both cards that are on the list today. So Tim, why don't you go ahead and tell me what card you picked?
So the card I picked is Last March of the Ents. This is 6 and 2 green for green sorcery that can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So I think that it takes the place of a spell that's already in the list, which is Rishkar's Expertise, which is practically the same. And this is technically the mana value is a little bit higher, but it also
it's not counterable too, which is nice.
It's not counterable, and I think it draws you a similar amount of cards. But then dumping every creature, like if you do this after Peer into the Abyss. You're just dumping your whole hand onto the board, which I'd really like a whole lot. So I think the ceiling of this is higher. It can't be countered. It fits into the build very well. It doesn't feel super exciting. As we've been talking, I've actually been thinking about some other stuff that that I'd love to talk a little bit about. But let's just get through these and we'll wrap up with some of that conversation.
Alrighty, so the card that I picked, again, this is just like a little cheeky spell that I would love to win with. And it is Vitalizing Wind. It is 8 and a green. It's an instant, and it says creatures you control get +7/+7 until end of turn. It's nothing great because it's just +7/+7. But the cool thing about it is when it costs 1, and I attack with 20 mana dorks, it's like whoopsies. Because this is something that this deck doesn't really have, is a way to pump my team. And it's probably something that I probably should have in the list, even though, again, I wasn't too thrilled about how the deck turned out, which is okay, and that's allowed to happen. And that's why I, like, when it comes to deck building, I always encourage to build it on, like, Moxfield or Architect or whatever deck building website that has a playtest feature. Play it before you buy it, because sometimes you just won't enjoy it. And like this deck is not cheap. I think it's like $400 or $500 or something like that. And like that would have just been a waste of $400. Well, I wouldn't call it a waste because now I have these cards, but I just wouldn't be happy with it, and it would just sit in the sleeves and just collect dust, and I don't like doing that to my poor decks. So
it's true, and I think that like when you have a deck like this where you build it the way that makes sense the first time, and then you play it a little bit like that, and you realize I'm really not into this. Like I'm not into the way that this is working this time. It gives you the chance to correct before you actually end up purchasing the cards.
Yep.
So, why go out and spend the money on the first version of the list when you found after playing it twice that isn't the way that you want to play it?
Yeah, I don't know how, if I were to change it, I don't know how I would.
So let's talk about that, because that's exactly what I was just thinking about. Like, what could you do to make this a deck that were not so linear and not so unfun to play? So the first answer is obvious, and it's take Sprout Swarm out.
Yep.
Like, Sprout Swarm makes it a 2-card combo with your commander. And again, we've made this argument before that it's not technically a 2-card combo because you need to have several other creatures in play for it in order to get it started. But like, it is still a 2-card combo. If the deck does what it is trying to do, which is put mana dorks out, all it needs to do is get Sprout Swarm, and at instant speed, it creates an infinitely big army. And if you have any of those other things in play, the wizard token or whatever, it actually just wins on the spot. So take Sprout Sprout Swarm out. And I actually am wondering if maybe it becomes a deck where you are trying to play with spells that generate creature tokens and you try to win the old-fashioned way by turning sideways.
Yeah.
So you can, and that would open the door to playing spells that were at least more, I don't know, a little bit more interesting. For example, both of the paradigm spells in color from the new set would be interesting to put in this list, especially the green one, which is not one that I would necessarily think goes in Commander a whole lot. But the green one is a 5-mana sorcery that puts 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and then it paradigms, so you cast it again every turn for the rest of the game. So it scales your creatures over time, but it's a sorcery, so you end up casting it for two green. So anything that makes your creatures bigger, overrun effects or things of that nature, or anything that generates creature tokens, you could just go as wide as you can with creature tokens and then make those creature tokens so big that you win, or you could go wide with creature tokens and have it be kind of an aristocrats. So here's the last suggestion I'll make, is Ancient Cellar Spawn.
What's that?
Ancient Cellar Spawn is a 3-mana 3/3 that says each spell that's a demon, horror, or nightmare costs 1 less. It doesn't matter. It's in my H&K deck.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast it was less than its mana value, target opponent loses X life equal to the difference.
Oh yeah, that would be a great way for this deck to win.
Yeah. Yes. So Ancient Cellar Spawn is a win condition instead of Sprout Swarm as a win condition. So you have to jump through hoops to make the deck a little bit more interesting, but that's really kind of what I'm wondering is there a tokens version of this that would be a little bit more fun, where you're just trying to build this wild token army that gets enormously big because of all the spells you're casting? I don't know, something to think about.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? If you want to see this deck be more interesting, let us know in the comments, and maybe we can do we fixed this deck and let's experience it when it's not as linear, right? So if that's something you want to see, where you get another gameplay with Witherbloom, because the card itself is really, really cool. And
it's interesting.
I would be willing to do a complete overhaul if you guys want to see it. So let us know in the comments below if that's something you would like to see. Because now I'm kind of interested in, I might do that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you bring up some valid points.
And I actually really loved the Let's Win with Biorhythm and Plague Wind, right? Mm-hmm. And while Sprout Swarm's in the deck, you're never going to win that way.
Right.
So I would leave those things in, just see if you could actually pull off that win. That was the original intent. And I think it was a question that you may even have asked me when you were building the deck, like, do I put this combo in there? And I was like, go for it. Like, let's see what it does. And we found out what it does. And the answer is it makes the deck boring.
Yeah. It's interesting how it's an interesting thought experiment. Just like, okay, let's try it with the combo, see how it does. And it turns out like that's just not my playstyle. Like I love Rube Goldberg machines. I mean, my Door to Nothingness deck is a prime example of what I like to play. And I could go a little bit more control-y too. Like I wouldn't necessarily, like I could ramp up the interaction. I could ramp up the mass interaction. I can ramp up the single target interaction, because I can use some more expensive spells if I can keep and then add more protection pieces to make sure my commander stays out, and then just do cool things like that. I think would be interesting. So please let us know. I would love, I think that's a good idea. Maybe we should try something like that and see how the crowd reacts. So but I think we kind of ran out of things to say.
We said more than we meant to, so we didn't run out. We added to the end. All right, friends, opponents. We've picked at this topic so much that the blooms have all withered.
Aw, now I'm sad.
So I guess that means we're done. Thank you, as always, spending time with us on the Head Games Commander podcast. Remember, you can support the show, all of our other content by watching this and all of our other fabulous videos on YouTube, as well as a recent gameplay video featuring this commander.
So good.
You'll find those links in the description.
But before we scoop things up, we want to hear from you, the think tanks. What cards would you play in your Witherbloom deck? What commanders would you like to see us build in the future and spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for playing along with us and have a wonderful day. Oh, wait, where's my plant? Oh, God. It's not real, but bye. Get it? It's a saproling.